but the declines are also nearly 40%. Pankaj, it's a story where that is really the same that we've been seeing session after session. The uncertainty, the wait and watch game, markets not knowing which way to go, any trigger we see, and we see that immediate impact coming in. We can go on talking about whether China impacts India adversely or not, but we saw that reaction, but finally recovery coming towards the end of trade.
Right, but Shweta, I just wanted to point out three names. SBI, Canara Bank and Bank of Baroda. These were in focus in the last 2 days, and today also when I was just looking at the volume chart, they dominate among the top 5 names. Generally, XI, SBI, that's Canara Bank and BOB, don't come into this category, but second day in a row, volumes are quite high. It's been very volatile for these PSU names in the last 2-3 hours, but it's among the top traded counters, so that's the space to focus on what's going to happen over there and how things are going to happen over there. So this is now looking undecided. PSU banks is enough, or essentially some more is likely to come in. Ruchit Jain from Angel Broking is now joining in. Good afternoon, Ruchit. Let me first start with the Chinese markets. Globally, how are things looking in? Are things looking in slightly soft globally? A global shock cannot be ruled out, which in turn may lead to selling pressure in India as well?
Good afternoon, Pankaj. Well, Pankaj, if we just first look at the global markets, then apart from China, we have not seen such kind of adverse moves or such kind of corrective move in any other markets. If you see whether it's US markets or European markets, so it is due to the internal slowdown due to which the markets are reacting over there. So till this turns into a global sell-off, I don't think one should worry much about Chinese markets, and only because Chinese markets have tanked 5%, 6%, just because of that, one should not one should not form a bearish view on our markets as well. So we have seen that generally only if the globally things are going bad, and if all the global markets are in a bad trend, then only our markets would react in line with their markets. Otherwise, I think one should just not overreact to what has happened to the Chinese markets in today's session. Now, coming back to our Nifty index, then if you just observe, it's been last 1.5 months wherein we have not seen any trended action in Nifty. Since the start of July month itself, Nifty has been trading in this range of 8300, 8320 support, and on the high side 86, 8650 is acting as a resistance. So unless we come out of this range, we are not going to see any such a trended action in the market. Probably one good thing that we are observing since last 2-3 trading sessions is the positive market breadth. Generally, the overall market breadth is a leading indicator and just tells us about the short-term future momentum of the market. So market breadth since last 2-3 trading sessions is positive. On Friday session, we saw a robust market participation on the higher side with an up move. Even yesterday, although the Nifty index was down, the market breadth was positive, and even in today's session, although the overall momentum in the index is a bit soft, but the things are quite well in the overall market breadth. So that's a bit positive indication over here. But still, I would not advise anyone to just go and short the market just because Chinese markets have gone down by 5% or 6%. It's let markets come out of this range. In case if 8300 gets broken, then only one should turn bearish. Otherwise, it's quite possibly we would move on the higher side of the range around 8600, 8650 in near term.
Right now, you see no reason even on the charts independently on Nifty to go ahead and sell on every rise or buy on say declines. What would be your call plain on Nifty right now?
Pankaj, there is no reason to go short on Nifty right now. If we just observe, then as I just told that it's been 1.5 months we are trading range bound, and 8300 is a good support zone. We have seen a bounce back from 8300 last week, and that too with positive market breadth since last 3-4 trading sessions. So biasness is positive over here in Nifty. Although upside momentum would coming only on breach of these 8600, 8650 levels. But here I won't advise to go short on Nifty. And in fact, my advice would be to trade with positive biasness and with placing stop loss below 8300 support zone.
How big a spoilsport can currency be? Because we are at a level which we've not seen for a while. We are at a 2-year low on the currency front. Of course, it's shut today. But how big a spoilsport can that be for the markets?
See, Pankaj, I am not expecting, a sharp depreciation in currency from current levels. We have seen that even on the charts, there was a gap, there was an unfilled gap over there, and according to that gap, 30 markets have filled that currency has filled that gap. So from current levels, I am not expecting that there would be further sharp depreciation on this. Maybe even if currency remains range bound over here, then also I don't think that markets would take that much negatively. Sector wise, IT sector would react positively to that, and since so probably IT sector would move up, and even some of the other sectors of mid cap go down, then the markets would, or Nifty would be balanced by positive momentum in IT sector. So I'm not expecting that there would be major depreciation in INR, and even if it remains range bound after the last 15 days of move, I don't think markets would react much negatively to that.
Right. What would you make of PSU banks? We've always spoken about it, but this time around there has been a lot of change. There have been some structural measures that have been taken, some new appointments that have been coming in. How are the patterns on chart looking in? Say for a SBI or for a Bank of Baroda, you think the buying this time around is different?
Yes, definitely, Pankaj. This time we have seen that buying momentum is coming on with good volumes. That may be due to short covering plus additional volumes, a combination of both. But the thing is that up move is with good volumes, and we are seeing an impulsive up move in some of these PSU stocks such as SBI, Bank of Baroda and Union Bank especially. So probably even last couple of times we spoke that 250 is a good support for SBI, and unless and till the stock is trading about 250, one should trade with positive biasness in the stock. So probably I think the momentum has gathered with good volumes in this. The moves are impulsive moves, so I don't think this stocks would correct significantly soon. We are getting a lot of queries from our clients that whether this is sustainable, or whether one should go and short this PSU banks only due to the reason that they have risen about 15%, 20% in last 1 week. But I don't think one should just go and create any short positions in PSU banks only because they've risen around 10-15% or more in last 1 week. So probably the trend is positive over there. The strength is being seen in the PSU bank, so I don't think one should go shorts at this level. In fact, any declines from current levels in PSU banks, specifically the three names which I just took, SBI, Union Bank and Bank of Baroda, which have shown impulsive up moves, they all three of the stocks should be used as buying on declines opportunity.
What would be your view as far as Canada Bank is concerned? That's another name which has got a private sector CMD. It's done quite well in terms of movement. Apart from the three names that you spoke, how is Canada Bank looking?
Higher top, higher bottom formation has started in Canada Bank also. But still I think that there would be outperformance in the other three names which we just spoke about rather than Canada Bank. So if anyone is looking for opportunity buying after this momentum of last 1 week, I think I won't go much, I won't be much bullish on Canara Bank from current levels, but rather I would prefer the other three names where we have seen impulsive up moves.
Right. And the overall PSU bank, nothing on the negative side. No chart patterns are looking not so decent, like BOI, Oriental Bank of Commerce. They have not performed the way some of these other names have done. Anything on the negative side as well?
Pankaj, well, PSU banks, I don't think there's anything much negative on the charts over here. It's just some banks would underperform the other PSU banks. But if we just shift focus on the overall Bank Nifty sector, then 19,000, 19,100 is a stiff resistance in the Bank Nifty. And in spite of PSU banks giving such a decent up move in last morning, we have not seen Bank Nifty giving breakout of this resistance zone. The prime reason from that is that most of the constituents of Bank Nifty is from private sector, which is underperforming if you just observe the last few days of movement. So I don't think one should go bearish on PSU banks, and in fact, in case the Bank Nifty starts correcting from here and does not breach this resistance zone of 19,000, 19,100, then I think the selling opportunity could be there in private sector banks such as Axis Bank, which has been underperforming in last few days. So one should, I'm not looking any negative momentum in PSU banks in near term, but rather, private sector banks could underperform, and in case if Bank Nifty starts correcting, then Axis Bank could be one of a shorting candidate over here.
Axis Bank at current levels, or you would wait for any retracement on the higher side? Because it's again a name which is loved by the markets.
Yeah, Axis Bank, even current levels, I think one can look to create short positions, because we have seen the last 3-4 days where other banking stocks have given a positive momentum. This stock is clearly underperforming. So in case if anyone wants to do any such of pair trade in this, then also it's I think one can look to short Axis Bank and go along an HDFC Bank in this private sector banking space. I think this pair could give a decent return in going ahead, since we have seen continuously Axis Bank has been underperforming and HDFC Bank has been outperforming the overall private banking sector. So probably selling in Axis Bank and buying in HDFC Bank could be pair trade could be generated here in private banks.
You know, Ruchit, the last 4-5 years, it's been all about buying private banks and selling PSU banks. You think that is changing now? It's the first time in the last so many years that somebody is giving such a call, that buy PSU on a contra basis and sell something like Axis or some of the other large cap private banks. You think that that theme would change going ahead in, say, at least for the next 4-5 quarters?
Pankaj, I'm not advising long-term investors to ignore private sector banks over here. You know, just if we see the short-term momentum in these both of these sectors, then private sector banks obviously has outperformed by a huge margin to PSU banks. And now we have seen the momentum getting picked up in PSU banks. So definitely from short-term perspective, I think this momentum could be played, wherein PSU banks would move higher and private sector banks would relatively remain sideways over here. So it's not an advice for long-term investors wherein they should start switching off from private sector banks to PSU banks, but rather it's just a short-term trading opportunities which we are looking in both these sectors. So probably it's just a short-term play and not an advice for long-term investors to shift from private sector banks to PSUs.
Right. Let's go back a little. From 2003 to 2008, we saw these names almost becoming 5 times. I'm talking about the PSU names. Some of them became 3 times, some of them became 4 times, 5 times names. Since then, they have given negative returns of 70, 80 odd percent for some of the ones. You think that that volatility would discontinue? Some of the smaller ones could again give 3-4 times in terms of returns. I mean, do you see that structural shift after 7 years on chart?
Well, Pankaj, I would still advise rather than looking at small cap or mid cap banks which may double or triple from current levels. The way the chart structure have panned out in this long term last 4 to 5 years, I think going ahead, rather than mid cap and small sized PSU banks, it would be large cap banks itself who would take the lead, and they would tend to generate decent returns on the higher side. So I would not advise anyone to start bottom fishing over here and start buying this mid cap PSU banks or small cap PSU banks in anticipation that yes, if PSU banks start outperforming from here on, then these banks would give much higher profit than private sector banks, the way we have seen in this 2003 to 2007 bull run. Rather, I think it's better to stick with the large cap banks itself. They could provide decent returns on the higher side, and the risk over here in the large cap banks would be much low than what comparatively what one would have to take while picking up this mid cap or small cap PSUs banks. That's why we have been recommending this large cap PSU banks such as SBI, Bank of Baroda, and Union Bank for on the buying side for our clients.
What would you make of BPCL? That's a name which is up and the nifty gainer today. Now, just to put in context, they declared numbers a few days back. You saw some good amount of selling for all the oil marketing companies after the numbers. You think that the initial froth is behind, and again, the long-term positive chart that they are in would tend to give outperformance?
Yes, if we just observe the long-term charts, then this higher top, higher bottom formation is still continuing in these stocks. HPCL and BPCL specifically, these two names have continued to, you have continued to see buying interest on every declines. So every time the stock declines about 7 to 8%, buying interest again starts coming in, and this buying generally takes out with good volumes as well. So I think unless we see any lower top, lower bottom formation in these stocks again, or any kind of distribution pattern, one should use every decline as a buying opportunity in these stocks.
Right. These are for all the 3 names, or any, you have any preference as you had in some of the PSU ones?
Specifically, HPCL looks one of the best peg in these 3 names, followed by BPCL. Probably IOC has not shown such outperformance the way other two stocks. And even volumes, if we see, then HP and BPCL both continue to attract good volumes over here. So I think in order of preference, top picks, top bets would be HPCL first and then BPCL.
Right. What would be your view on DLF? It's now currently just seen a sharp spike coming in. Off late, there was a 20% move coming in on DLF. Again, huge delivery volumes were also seen. You can see that sharp spike. I'm not sure if there is any news flow regarding DLF, but that's a name that's topping the chart right now. Ruchit, what would be your view on DLF? The recent buying suggests that, again, there is something different than what we have seen earlier.
See, overall chart structure of DLF was forming this low top, low bottom formation till last month. Wherein we know after this news flows of DLF selling stake to reduce the debt, after that news itself, I think the trend has reversed. And probably the buying momentum is now seeing with a higher top, higher bottom form. First higher top, higher bottom form, in fact, seen on the daily charts of DLF. So probably I think from here on, although I'm not sure whether how much upside momentum it would gain in near term, but at least the bearishness won't be there in this stock. Any kind of decline in this stock, I think that would be used as short-term traders again to go long in this stock unless this higher top, first higher top, higher bottom which we have seen gets negated. So I think one should not go short in this stock, in this DLF. Although I'm not much comfortable or I'm not much aggressive going long in DLF at current levels for a huge upside move. On the high side, resistance is seen around 138, 140 levels, which is not much, which does not show much upside from current levels. But at least one should not go short in this stock at current levels also.
Ruchit, thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. Hope you have a great day going ahead. There was a technical view coming in that chances of markets going on the positive side are slightly on the higher side. In the short term, one can go long on PSU banks, the large ones that we spoke about, but only if you actually see a decline coming in over there. On that note, we'll take a quick break.